Roses are red, violets are blue. This is subjectively correct that you are listening to. Welcome back, everybody, to the little podcast where two pals discuss movies relating to a randomized theme or subject to compare tastes and experiences. My name is Matt, and here's my co host, Josh.
Hello, and I was not expecting that rhyme, so thank you for that, Matt.
You're welcome. This month, fate chose the genre of romantic comedies for us. Let's see if this lovey-dovey, extra fluffy category of films will spark some not so loving opinions. Here's the thing with this genre, I think. There are certain genres of movies that I feel like defy critical analysis a lot. Like you have the children's movies and the action films, for example.
Yeah.
And the romantic comedies, like this is the sort of realm of things where people often feel like it isn't worthy of like a critical second glance after the credits rolled.
True.
So in that regard, or people disregard it wholesale because, as in relation to romantic comedies especially, they might disregard it wholesale because of all the massive amount of repetitive, low effort stuff that comes out every year from like Hallmark and shit. So romantic comedies in itself are like an interesting subject to discuss in a more or less critical way. I think I'm curious how our episode is gonna end up in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I think you don't see a lot of like romantic comedies at like the art house theaters where there's all the highbrow, critically acclaimed movies showing. You don't get like a shitty rom-com to round it out. But, doesn't mean they're bad, I would say.
It doesn't. No. I think a lot of people would probably also be, they wouldn't expect two dudes to be talking about romantic comedies, probably. It probably doesn't fit in their heteronormative worldview or something. But I don't think we belong to that. Like, that genre is just as valid as any other.
Yeah.
And it can be fun, like you said, for sure.
Well, I like to think that, we don't necessarily just fit tiny boxes. So.
No, hell no.
But yeah, let's have a chat. I think we've got some interesting romantic comedies, though. Like, they're not necessarily 100% run-of-the-mill. They are kind of
no,
a little different.
But I do think they both play with run-of-the-mill ideas to subvert them in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm going to introduce my film because it's the oldest. So
there we go. Yeah.
This month, I brought the film A Life Less Ordinary from 1997, which happens to also be one of my just favorite films in general because I've seen it that many times. I own the soundtrack, like bought it on CD back in the 90s. And it's been a staple of mine for a long, long time. But as we were kind of discussing before recording, it's the kind of film that I really love, but no one else does. And it kind of hasn't got a very good reputation. And if you look online, there's a lot of bad reviews for it. But I think it just kind of weirds people out. Anyway, back to the nuts and bolts. It's directed by Danny Boyle, who is probably well known by a lot of people because he did Trainspotting. He did 28 Days Later. He did Sunshine. He did The Beach. He did a whole bunch of movies which are and have been very well liked and very well received. It's written by John Hodge, who I don't really know much of John Hodge's work, but I just thought I'd mention that anyway. But it stars a pretty stellar cast in my view. It has Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz in the lead roles, which are, it's rom-com, so we've got a very kind of boy-girl kind of situation there. But it also stars, and probably the more reason I like it is the cameos and the support roles than the main ones necessarily, even though I do like the main ones. But we've got Holly Hunter, Delroy Lindo, Dan Hedaya, Stanley Tucci, and a bunch of other people who you'd probably recognize if you watch the film. But I'm not going to go into because they're the main ones, and they're the ones who are on screen most of the time. But there are some like odd ones who show up, like Timothy Olyphant before he was famous. He's in there doing like a bit part, and yeah, there's a few people like that who just kind of do little parts here and there. But the basis of the story, to give a quick rundown, quick little plot synopsis, is Ewan McGregor plays a character who is essentially a janitor in a large company, and he's got dreams of being a writer and writing a shitty rom-com novel that everyone tells him is going to be terrible, and he's like, yeah, that's the kind of the point. And he's got this kind of dreamy romantic view of love, even though he's a bit done with life and a bit over with it. So he decides he's going to basically take it out on his employer after he gets fired and replaced with a robot. And in the process ends up kidnapping his boss's daughter, who is Cameron Diaz, who is the quintessential rich, spoiled girl who's always had everything she always wanted or has always wanted for nothing, I should say, although as we find out, there may be some limitations to that in the movie, and we find out that actually, even if you are rich, you don't have everything anyway, which is, that trope.
Mm-hmm.
So Ewan McGregor kidnaps her and takes her away and kind of holds her for ransom, and isn't a very good kidnapper because it's just kind of a last minute thing. And so they end up working together to try and get a ransom from her father, who's filthy rich, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, at the same time, this is all being orchestrated by a couple of angels who literally have come down from heaven. And it's I think it's a very lighthearted take on the whole religion thing. Like, it's not trying to smash religion or any of that kind of stuff. It's just saying, hey, this is funny. There's some angels. They're getting a bit sick of everyone getting divorced down on Earth. They want people to fall in love and stay together and just find true love like they used to back in the good old days. So these two angels, who are basically Holly Hunter and Delroy Lindo, who they're tasked with making Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz fall in love. And so they orchestrate essentially this entire scenario where they put them through jeopardy together and bond them, and eventually, hopefully it all pays off in the end. And to me, that's kind of the funny part of it, because it gets out of the regular kind of rom-com box, for want of a better word, and kind of goes into a bit of the surreal and bizarre, and kind of gets a bit silly here and there as well. And that's why I like it personally, because to me, it's got its own kind of personality. It's got its own kind of identity that I haven't really felt so much with a lot of other films, especially in the rom-com kind of category. So I think it's very interesting and it's very fun, and it's kind of lighthearted and doesn't take itself too seriously as well, which I always like. But it's got like a good pacing to it. It's kind of takes some unexpected twists and turns, I think, even though it does kind of follow the typical kind of arc of two people falling in love and, not liking each other every now and then, but then actually liking each other, but then falling out, but then getting back together, and all that kind of crap. But that's basically the Cliff Notes. I've watched this film like maybe I don't even know how many times I've seen it, so I could probably quote the whole thing. I love the soundtrack too. It's a very 1997 soundtrack, which is cool. It features like Underworld and Faithless and a whole bunch of different kind of 90s groups that you'd probably recognize. That's my spiel. I'm going to hand it over to Matt. Tell us what you thought, Matt. I'm eager as a beaver.
I believe these relationship-centered movies, your enjoyment is going to rely a lot whether or not you vibe with the characters. And I don't think I vibe with the characters that much. You already explained it with the kidnapping scheme, and that Evan McGregor's character is like not good at all at what he's trying to do. While then the kidnappee, Cameron Diaz's character, has to help him out. Basically, I don't think I like the trope of the doofus kidnapper needing help from the kidnappee. That's like such a cartoony idea that I've seen enough that I don't want it anymore. And Evan McGregor's character was so dumb that it was more annoying than endearing to me, I think. Like, I love McGregor, but not his character. His character was a bit annoying here. Cameron Diaz was more bearable, I guess. But she doesn't have the greatest character either. She's the bickering rich girl. It's very easy to not like that either. I get you already said, I think, that the movie is generally not super popular by a lot of people, with a lot of people, and I can see why too. I think this is also one of the major criticisms I have seen on my quick glance around Letterboxd, that they don't vibe with the characters. So I didn't find it terrible. I didn't find them terrible. They had their moments as well. But over almost 2 hours, I don't know if I wanted to stay with them that long. It was these two characters specifically were a bit one note to me as well. And the angels, though, I wanted to like the angels more. They were more interesting to me, and I love Delroy Lindo. I always love when I see him pop up and stuff. I gotta say, though, I didn't quite get their plan. There was some. I liked some funny ideas with like the initiate trauma. No, wait, that was actually that was something else. Holy shit, I'm already
Jeopardy.
struggling to remember this movie. But I mean, they were basically trying to trauma bond these people, right?
Yeah.
By putting them in these dangerous scenarios. I get that. But then what was up with the whole scene where they were trying to kill them themselves? And also the ending. You gotta explain to me a bunch of things about this movie, I think.
So the bit where like I think Holly Hunter and Delroy Lindo's characters are like the angels are just so funny to me. Like, it's so my sense of humor, their kind of antics and the way they play it so straight, but it is so stupid. And yeah, the them trying to kill them at the end is more just like they think they've failed and they're so frustrated because the deal is if they don't,
Is that what's going on?
If it doesn't work, they have to stay on Earth. So they're like, screw it, we're just going to kill them anyway because, who cares? And I think that's what they were going for there, like, just simply put. And yeah, the whole putting them through Jeopardy thing, it's like they can't just, it's not like Cupid's arrow making two people fall in love. It's like they can manipulate situations, but they can't force two people to kind of be together kind of thing. So they've, from their experience and stuff, they know that putting people through Jeopardy together kind of bonds them together and forces them to kind of get to know each other and all that kind of thing. So, it is a silly premise, but yeah.
I mean, that I get, though, but I think it ended up in like a blurry area where I was kind of failing to follow their exact plan at some point. I think that was a problem for me. Also, I mean, we are talking spoilers here anyway. If you haven't seen this movie and you're worried about spoilers, get the hell out. Because you gotta explain the ending to me. That if you don't vibe with the movie, if you don't vibe with the movie already, the ending is kind of like the cherry on top where you're like, what? Because what actually happens? He gets shot and dies? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, okay. So there's basically a standoff at the very end where between the angels who have been hired by Cameron Diaz's father to basically track down the kidnapper, i.e. Ewan McGregor, and they've taken the job as bounty hunters so that no one else in the real world would actually get the job. And so at the end there's this standoff between the angels, the father and his henchmen, and then also Cameron Diaz and Ewan McGregor. And there's a whole lot of money involved as well that was ransomed and that kind of thing. So, the father wants the money back. The angels want to basically go back to heaven, and Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz want to just ride off into the sunset kind of thing. And at the very end, Cameron Diaz kind of shoots Ewan McGregor in order to set him free kind of thing. And that's where it gets kind of surreal, because she does shoot him through the heart.
Yes.
But throughout the movie, he keeps having this dream where she saves his life by shooting him through the heart. And it kind of manifests and comes real. And it's, in my view, it's like a bit of a a representative kind of moment of Ewan McGregor being a complete dreamer and having his head in the clouds and, you know, having all these romantic notions and all this kind of stuff that Cameron Diaz doesn't have because she's quite cynical and, you know, she's only ever had fairly cynical relationships and all that kind of thing. And her doing that and actually kind of taking that leap of faith is kind of what, to me, kind of finalizes their bond together because she's then becoming a bit of a dreamer herself and kind of believing in the dream and believing in the romantic side of it. And because we're talking angels and stuff and, you know, Gabriel himself is looking down and keeping an eye on things, I kind of suspended disbelief that, yeah, he probably should have died because he got shot, but they do bring people back to life anyway.
Okay.
Like, there's this whole thing where he gets shot and everything, but Gabriel is in heaven and he kind of calls God to say, hey, can't you do something about this? And, you know, sort things out and make it all happen because it's all kind of going pear-shaped and it's all going chaotic. And obviously God steps in and kind of, you know, makes the impossible possible. And yeah, that's how they kind of save the day. Which I get is
so
out
honestly,
there.
God did all the work.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, came in at the last minute and saved everything. But
great.
And that's what I mean. I get that it's a tough sell for people because it is, you know, it's a bit of a out there kind of story, and it takes some directions that I think, you know, are interesting and I think they're fun, but I can see why they might not land for others.
It just was a bit of a mess, I think, for me. And that's honestly fine, especially in this genre. The story doesn't have to make complete sense or whatever. It can just be a vibe, might as well. But then you gotta have the interesting or sympathetic characters, and that didn't really land with me. That being said, though, I agree that some of the smaller roles were pretty damn great. I loved Stanley Tucci as the weird dentist guy. When they end up in his dentist's office after he gets shot that one time, that whole sequence was I think that was my favorite scene in the whole movie. It was just so funny. Tucci is such a good
He's so
actor.
good. And he's so good in that character as well. Like, he just runs with it and he's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I love that as well, for sure.
Yeah. But even, I thought, because for me as well, like, I really liked that it doesn't necessarily, I feel like in a lot of ways this movie, like it or not, it subverts the whole kind of typical rom-com thing. And that's kind of its point. Even right at the end or near the end, I guess, when Cameron Diaz kind of finds this poem that has been sent to her, but it's been written by Delroy Lindo. And she thinks it's been written by Ewan McGregor. And so she goes to him and says, oh, wow, this is amazing. No one's ever written something so beautiful to me. Rah, rah, rah. And he just kind of goes, well, I didn't write it. Like, no, that wasn't me. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
True.
Like, and I just really like that because it's, you know, in other movies or something, they might have just made it go, oh, yes, I love you. And everything that's in there is true, even if I didn't write it or whatever. But yeah. Go on.
But they don't exactly have that. But then they still have the overly philosophical, melodramatic final dialogue after.
Absolutely.
He gets shot and resurrected. Like, that is, I don't think that was needed. That was kind of too much in my book.
Well, I think as well, because one of the main themes of the story and the kind of thing they lean into a lot is the idea of like fate and are things determined or do you have free will? And all that kind of thing. It's not in a very heavy way, but it's there as a theme. And, you know, that's the whole thing with the angels kind of influencing what you do and everything. But can they influence what you do anyway, no matter how much they try and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And yeah.
Yeah, I get it, I guess.
I get it.
I get it.
I suppose.
It's fine.
So I guess this isn't going to be
here we are. This is the thing.
This isn't going to be an instant
I mean-
favorite for you then.
No, it's not. But I feel like this fits well in. I guess that's the genre too, though. Earlier I said in the intro, like how this genre sometimes like evades the critical analysis. I think a lot of this genre is just you feel it or you don't. I mean,
Yeah.
that's with arts in general, but I think this genre especially is a bit like that, and I think this is the case here.
Well, I think, and something which I'll touch on as well in your movie especially, I think if,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like romance and relationships and those sorts of things, for me at least, it definitely depends on how much you can connect with it or not. And if it seems completely foreign to you, then it might not land so
Right.
well, I think. Or if it seems way too close, it might not land too well either. There's like a balance there.
Right.
It's like I think when there's depictions of mental health and stuff in movies, like sometimes it can either make it or break it for me because of your own experience or friends of mine and that kind of thing. Like it just either feels right or it doesn't. And it's not like a big thing. It's just it can kind of shake you one way or the other, I think, and yeah, kind of make you get on or off the
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah, I never fell in love with my kidnapped victim before, so I couldn't relate to this movie, I guess. Were they even in love? Really?
Well,
I don't even know if I'm convinced of that, to be honest.
there's a line that I really like in the movie, which I'm going to botch now because I'm trying to remember it at a critical moment. But there's a point in the movie where they basically go out drinking, and Ewan McGregor kind of says to Cameron Diaz, "Yeah, like, forget it. I'm not your kidnapper anymore. You're free. I don't really care." And you know, it's all too hard, and I couldn't be bothered doing it anymore. So off you go. And but while they're hanging out, drinking and stuff, that's kind of when they first kind of, in my mind, start kind of getting together or falling for each other or kind of seeing each other for who they are as opposed to their surface kind of characters. And Cameron Diaz has a line which is something like, Ewan McGregor's character is called Robert, and Cameron Diaz says, "Indulge me, Robert." And he says, "Well, if that's what you really want."
Oh.
And she says, "Well, it's all I ever want." And to me, that just kind of sums her up completely. And I love it because
You think that's an expression of endearment or something?
I think it kind of highlights that moment in their relationship when, like I say, they drop all the pretense and they just start kind of being themselves and seeing each other for who they actually are, rather
enough,
than the kind of facade that we all kind of carry and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, she's the rich kind of spoiled girl and blah blah blah, and he's like the loser who kind of has his head in the clouds and doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And
But I mean, I felt like that line supported her character as a rich spoiled brat. She always wants to be indulged as a rich spoiled brat. I just felt that was like supporting that.
yeah, I can see that. I think to me though, it kind of felt like she's saying that, like, even though she has everything and she, wants for nothing and is this rich, spoiled kind of person, she never actually gets what she wants or never actually finds anything she wants or is
Right.
or, can indulge in something that she wants to indulge in. It's all kind of very prescribed and restricted and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, anyway.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough.
I just like that moment in the film. It's quite it's a favorite.
Is this a film that you laughed on first sight, or was it something that built up over multiple views?
No, I think I liked it I liked it a lot from the very first time I saw it. Because I remember I bought it on VHS. I bought the soundtrack. I was obsessed with it for a while. And then I then bought it on like DVD after that. And, like, it's one of those films that has always been in my collection, like, since it came out, because I've just loved it that much.
Damn.
So
Did you see it in theater?
I don't think so. I think I rented it or something at the time.
Damn.
Yeah. I was 1997. I was like 15. I wasn't spending money on
Could have made it. Damn, son.
I was, you're getting the value of spending $10 and getting 7 weekly rentals, all for $10.
Right.
You know?
But wasn't the cinema way cheaper back then? I don't know.
I mean, yes, but relatively the same deal.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
But anyway, if you had to put a number on it, which I'm going to make you do, what would you put on this film?
When the credits rolled, I was lying around a 6 out of 10. Like, I didn't hate it or anything. I still had a decent time. It just wasn't something I would think much about afterwards, I guess.
I'll take that as a win. That's positive.
Glad to hear.
But you know, like I say, it's no mystery to me that this film can be not to everyone's taste. I think it's one of those films that all the little things that probably put off a lot of people, or like you say, it's kind of messy, or you didn't feel like parts of the story came through well enough. All of that appealed to me. So, like, they were all ticks in my book.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. It happens. It happens. We all have films like that, of course. Also, like, I mean, speaking of which, I wouldn't be shocked, even before we decided on these movies. I wouldn't be shocked if you didn't vibe with my choice at all. And I have a feeling that might be true. So let's just jump over.
Maybe not for the reasons you expect, though. So why don't you tell us all about it, and we'll get into it.
All right. So I picked the movie 500 Days of Summer from 2009, directed by Mark Webb, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Zooey Deschanel, Geoffrey Arendt, Chloe Grace Moretz, and a whole bunch of other people. Written by Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, whatever. Apparently, they've written a bunch of romantic comedy-esque movies together. So I guess this wasn't the first rodeo.
Cool.
And 500 Days of Summer is the story of a failed architect working at a greeting card corporation who classically falls in love with a new employee at the place, Zooey Deschanel's character. And they start dating, they start getting together, they start having a pretty stereotypical relationship, even though her character is always open, more or less, about not being into relationships. She just likes hanging out. She just enjoys the vibe and doesn't want to think more about it. And that eventually leads to sort of conflict between these two people. I think not really much more needs to be said. It's a very, on the surface level, it's a very vanilla romantic plot. But then the movie is filled with intentional, over-the-top, almost parody-esque elements of, romance tropes. Because I think this whole movie is just playing up the idea that media often presents of relationships, of the perfect relationship. And it's trying to parodize it and break it down, ending with a story where it doesn't happen like that. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
The first time I watched this was post breakup, post real life breakup. Yeah, and I watched it every month for a year because I was projecting a lot onto this movie from the breakup.
Were you listening to lots of Smiths at the time?
Actually, no. I don't even like the Smiths.
All right.
It did feel like a bit of a guilty pleasure, though, because this movie is so brutally quirky, so Heteronormative, so extremely heteronormative. It's the widest movie I've ever seen. All of these things, but somehow that just makes it funnier to me. And honestly, on repeat watches, I feel like I get more that that's exactly the point. They made this super extreme heteronormative romance story to play it up to the extreme and have it end in the probably unexpected bad ending or whatever. And I'm
That's
going to go
interesting.
immediately to yeah.
Because I thought it was a good ending, really.
No, I love the ending. Oh, 100%. Because for one, it doesn't end well in the sense that they end up together. She leaves him for another dude. And it's not with any like big, meaningful, melodramatic reason. It just happens. And I fucking love that to death. It's a romantic movie where it doesn't go the obvious like super big memorable message or whatever. No, life just happens. Shit just moves on. Some people just change their feelings and that's it. No explanation needed. And the main character tries to grapple with that. I love that theme. It's so good. And before that, obviously, you have all the over the top bullshit. Did you like the dance sequence in the streets?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. No, I didn't like that. I fucking hate dance sequences, even if it's got a bit of a wink to the camera of it being funny.
I like that you say that though, because in Life Less Ordinary, they have the sort of dream sequence dance in the pub after the karaoke. And
Worst part of the movie.
They're the same. It's the same thing. It's the same fucking thing. There you go.
Yeah. And worst part of Life Less Ordinary as well, if you ask me. I hate a random dance sequence. I don't. But that's me. Like as an art form, dance in general is just not something I connect with. I can appreciate the skill and the artistry of it and all that kind of thing, but I just don't get it. Like whenever I watch anything to do with dance, I'm just like, I don't connect with this at all. And that's what I mean. I can appreciate the great skill that people have and the craftsmanship of it and how amazing artists these people are with their bodies and all that kind of stuff. But dance just, it's nothing for me. It's just a waste of time.
No. I mean, that dance sequence in 500 Days of Summer is definitely one of the most, the loudest, most egregious parts of the movie.
It was mercifully short, though. I'll give it that.
I guess. But I genuinely believe it's on purpose. It's on purpose to play up this old-ass movie trope way of a relationship and to make it look like the bullshit that it is. Because that's the world that he lives in. I think he says it in some scene too, that movies and stuff, media, gave him that image of the perfect relationship, and then he eventually learns that that's not the way real life works. So all these over-the-top sequences like the dance sequence in the streets and also the voice-over narration at some point, all of these things are just like these bits that we are familiar with these fake ass stories that we where we learn what a relationship is supposed to look like. Also, do you remember early on when Zoe Deschanel's character is introduced and they have that voice-over narration of she's a very regular girl, completely mediocre. Her weight, her look, her size, completely mediocre. And it's like Zoe Deschanel's just like a supermodel type of actress.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but I think in the context of the movie, where, in a romantic movie, even the most mediocre person is a supermodel, I think at this point, I'm not entirely confident that that's actually what's going on, or if it's just a tone-deaf description. But I think this is also intentionally made, that they describe her as a mediocre girl, full knowing that she isn't, because that's how the fake world of romance movie presents people in these stories. And with this lens, right? with this lens, I really, really enjoy this movie. It's just so fun. Without being cynical, though. You know, it fucks with the genre without being cynical or trying to disrupt any good feelings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what do you think? What did you hate the most, aside from the dance sequence?
No. So just on that though, like the thing about describing Zooey Deschanel as like, you know, she's totally average and there's nothing special about her. It's like, yeah, she's obviously a very attractive woman, and we're not blind. But I think the Barbie movie did it better. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not.
I have.
There's a moment where Margot Robbie's character as Barbie is crying and going, "I'm so ugly, rah, rah, rah." And a narration comes in and says, "I'm sorry, but Margot Robbie's the wrong person to cast if you want people to think that she's ugly." And it's like, yeah, you recognize that, don't you? Because she's basically a supermodel, and you're trying to convince us that she's actually not good looking.
I mean, that's good, yeah, but that's on the nose too. Don't you want to be challenged and have to think a bit for yourself?
Challenged. I like how you twisted that around.
500 Days of Summer. Yeah, twisting around. That's the facts. That's the subjective truth.
So, I will preface everything I'm about to say by saying that I feel like we are coming at this from vastly different perspectives. And
yeah, I figured, honestly.
Yeah, and I think not that it has a lot to do with anything, but I think there's a bit of our age difference might come in here a bit, our life experience, that kind of thing. And I say that because this whole movie was basically a relationship that I have had, like the exact same thing. So
did you project your stuff on it as well, just like I did many years ago?
Well, it's full of so much dumb shit and bad decisions and awful people on both sides, like male and female, like, and relating to myself, like myself and my ex, who I'm thinking of when I think of this. But we were young teenagers and making dumb decisions and learning and all that kind of thing. I've since grown up and I'm now an adult, and these things don't really relate to me very well because I've moved on. And so the whole film seemed very juvenile to me because it reminded me of being a teenager. And the kind of feelings that they explore and the kind of attitudes that they have and that sort of thing just makes me feel like being a dumb fucking teenager again. And as much as I recognize that and I own it and I'm like, yeah, cool, I was an idiot too back then, I'm past that now and I like being past that. And, you know, I've learned lessons and I think I'm a better person now than I was when I was a teenager. Probably still got a lot to learn as well, but those sorts of things which seem very childish then because it relates to my own kind of childhood, I just really struggle to keep me interested because I'm just like, I don't care anymore to explore these sorts of things. It's like, I've already lived it. I've already explored it myself. I've already kind of found my way through that experience. I don't need it again. And it's not really interesting. So having said that though, to put a positive spin on it, it did feel very authentic and very realistic. And I can, by relating to this as well, obviously it felt very authentic to me. Like I can recognize these characters as real people and these are real scenarios and kind of real conflicts and things that they came up against, which is why I liked the ending because I felt like, again, that was very realistic. And, you know, two people in that kind of scenario who have those sorts of attitudes, which I'll talk about in a sec, they're never going to last anyway because it's that whole thing. And that's where it's very kind of, to me, early learning how to be in a relationship kind of shit where, you know, he's putting her on a pedestal. She's just wanting to have fun. And they kind of are both so far up their own asses that they don't know what's going on anyway. Like they're both selfish and obnoxious and childish and needy and just annoying in general.
Yes.
And I say that as someone who's been there, so that's what I mean. I'm not dissing them so much, but
yes,
you know,
exactly. I think we've all been there.
Yeah. I just don't think it's that interesting because I have been there. Like, it's like, okay, Zooey Deschanel's character, Summer, as it were, she is completely selfish. She's one of these people who, male or female, doesn't matter, but they kind of confuse being independent and having freedom with lacking empathy and being selfish and being obnoxious and not really giving a fuck about anyone else around you. And, you know, to me, there's a difference. There's a nuance to that. And that's kind of part of growing up is like, you can be independent and free without being a dick. And then on the other hand, you've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character who is incredibly needy and a little bit obsessive and puts her on a pedestal and thinks she's the most angelic, amazing thing ever in the world. And she defines him completely and he's nothing without her kind of thing, which is also kind of toxic and horrible. And he's also the star of his own little drama and, you know, annoying his friends all the time with his own bullshit and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And of course, those two people put together are never going to have longevity. They might have a bit of fun here and there, but eventually it's going to all blow up and kind of, you know, fall apart in their face.
Yes.
And so...
But, yeah.
I guess even despite it being, like, authentic and being... Like, I felt like everyone did a good performance, although I do have to say Zooey Deschanel does kind of annoy me because she's the same in everything, and she's that same fucking kooky character.
That's fair, yeah.
It's like she's not even trying to be different, which is fine. Like, good on her, it's working for her. So I'm not going to begrudge her a career that's obviously working for her. You know, good on her.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as someone watching a film, it's just not interesting to me. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I know exactly how this is going to go. I know exactly what kind of character this is as soon as I even heard she was in the film, let alone seeing the film. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt as well played very Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And also, to cap it all off, this film did that very thing of being incredibly 2009 where it's like the indie rom-com and, you know, there's all the kind of hand-drawn cityscapes and stuff that kind of bookend different chapters and things. And it's kind of like it's like Juno, that film as well. It's where it's all the hand-drawn stuff that's also indie and quirky. And it's like...
Yeah.
like...
But I mean, he's an architect. He's drawing buildings. It's very thematic. It's definitely also like a vibe thing. I can't reason for it, but I do vibe with the style of the movie.
And that's what I mean by it being very 2009, because it's like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's another another rom-com called It's Kind of a Funny Story, which I don't know if you've seen.
Dude.
I love that film. Like,
but that has a special place in my life. The book as well, for sure.
Me too. I think that very film personal. Is on point. But it does the same thing because, you know, it does that whole quirky indie, lots of drawings in the thing and everything. And it came out in 2010. So it's very much of the era. And I feel like this film as well is very much of the era. And unfortunately, that kind of stuff doesn't do any favors for me. So I didn't find it endearing.
Yeah.
I didn't find like, oh, look at all the quirky characters. Like, no, they're just annoying fucks.
I wonder, both of those movies came into my life around the same time and had very, very personal meanings for me. I wonder if that's just why I started liking this sort of style as well.
It's interesting because like 500 Days of Summer kind of annoyed me, whereas It's Kind of a Funny Story. I really like that film. Like I rewatch it all the time because I think it is...
Which is, yeah.
But it has also that, for anyone who doesn't know, it's about basically a kid who kind of checks himself into a mental health hospital because he's suicidal, but there's a bit of rom-com happening and it's a bit of a funny story for that matter. But I like how it kind of it approaches and deals with mental health issues and that kind of thing. Like I think it does a really good job of not preaching and just kind of nailing characters for who they are individually and that kind of thing. But we're not talking about that movie, so cool.
Unfortunately.
It's a good one though.
Yeah, it is.
Whereas, I think where I land on kind of 500 Days of Summer, there were also a couple of things that were a bit on the nose for me. Like,
Sure.
I mean, I know it's kind of, the whole film is kind of looking at the camera and winking as well. Like, see what we did there?
Mm-hmm.
Like at the very end when he meets a girl who he naturally kind of just gets along with, and her name is Autumn.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
As soon as she said that, I'm just like, oh, fuck off.
No, I'm standing up and clapping, man.
It reminds me of, do you know the pop singer Carly Rae Jepsen?
Yeah.
She does that song, Call Me Maybe.
Yes.
Which, is a banger, I have to say. But
sure, yeah.
If you've ever seen a Carly Rae Jepsen music video, it's one of those videos that kind of look, well, I don't know all her videos, but the video I'm thinking of, which isn't for Call Me Maybe, it's for something else, is all these kind of cute bits of seemingly candid footage of her like running around the city and like hiding and popping out from places and, laughing and going, and it's all meant to look very like off the cuff and like her friends are just kind of filming her as they're out for the evening and stuff and blah, blah, blah. But it's all totally set up and it's bullshit. And if anyone actually acted like that in real life, you'd slap them. That's what 500 Days of Summer reminded me of. Have a little whimsy in your heart. I love a bit of whimsy, but that kind of shit just fucking, it's so TikTok kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Sounds like
and that's where I think I'm just too old for this shit, man. Like,
damn, bro.
I'm back in the 90s with, crazy bloody Danny Boyle movies, but
yeah, with the kidnappers and the angels. Sure.
But I think with 500 Days of Summer, like, the upsides are that it's like authentic and I felt like it was, a realistic kind of relationship story. It was just me and my kind of interpretation of it or connection to it or whatever kind of just annoyed me about it. And it wasn't very interesting. It didn't really surprise me, I guess, as well. Like, no part in that film did I go, oh, cool. Like, that's interesting.
Did you see the ending coming?
Pretty much.
The subdued ending. Oh, damn.
Yeah, I mean, well, I that's what I mean. I liked it. I thought it was an authentic ending, and it was a realistic kind of ending because I never felt like they were going to last anyway. And there is that, and I'm sure we've all experienced that moment of someone who you have had a relationship with, and then you kind of, you break up, you get depressed, whatever, you get over it, and then you do see them again, and you kind of have that kind of recognition of, yeah, I do kind of like you for all the reasons I like you, but I also don't like you for all the reasons I don't like you. So we're cool. And,
yeah.
I know a lot of people don't like to be friends with their exes and all that kind of stuff, which I don't know. I that's never been my bag. Like, I'm always happy to be friends with my exes because I always think there's a reason I like them in the first place. There's just probably reasons why we shouldn't be in a relationship together, like an intimate relationship together. And
yeah,
but that's okay. Like if I'm different strokes for different folks kind of thing.
I mean, as you say that the relationship that fell through during the breakup, which I've seen this movie for the first time and shit, that person is a very close friend to me now. So
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Exes can be friends for sure.
Well, and I think that's kind of, again, like that's being an adult about it as well, in my view. Like not to diss anyone who, of course, if you've got trauma and pain associated with someone that is much more long lasting than just it didn't work, then obviously, you might not want to be friends with them, and that's totally cool. I get that. I'm not trying to say that anyone should be any one way. For me, most of my relationships have ended just because we didn't get along in the end. Like shit just fell apart, like you do your time and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of done. So, it's nothing too dramatic.
You are the Zoe Deschanel in this story.
Well, sadly not.
Damn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't feel like it. I feel like I've said this before about other films, but I don't feel like 500 Days of Summer was a bad movie.
Yeah.
For me personally, it just didn't hook me. It didn't land. I didn't like the characters, which is, again, fine. I don't mind unlikable characters.
There you
But
go. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't. It just, for me, I think I'm at the wrong point in my life for that kind of story. I just didn't connect with it in a way that made me happy. I didn't find it entertaining. I found it a bit, yeah, whatever. This is completely predictable and, you know, well-trodden ground, I guess, that I'm thinking, why is this story being told? Like, there's no point to it.
Despite the presentation and the attempt of subverting the expectations of the genre,
Yes.
still think it's
See, I felt like it fit the genre pretty well as well. Like, you know,
yeah.
To me, it followed the very generic arc of, and most of them do. Like, that's what I mean. And again, it's not something I necessarily hold against it, but it didn't do anything exciting in that sense. Where, you know, they meet each other, they fall in love. It's all a bit novelty and exciting and all this kind of thing. Then they kind of settle in a bit, and then they have different expectations. They fall out, and then they kind of half get their hopes up again. And then no, it's not working, and they fall out again. Then they kind of both grow up and get their shit together and go, hey, now we actually can be amicable and nice because we're not being selfish children, essentially. So, yeah.
Sure. So what you're saying essentially is that you wouldn't play the penis game with your newfound date.
See, I've seen and heard of that game before as well, where you try and shout penis louder than the person next to you. And when they started playing it, I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Dude, I forgot about that. But that's actually something that my ex and I did when we were dating first. So, like, and there it is, this stupid fucking movie. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, oh my God.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think that's the whole fucking reason why I'm here with this movie.
And that's cool though. That's rad because, you know, like other rom-coms that I enjoy, which I know are shit, but for whatever reason they've kind of connected with me in some way that obviously I think is worth or entertaining or whatever. I get something out of it in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's where this one just fell for me because I just didn't get anything out of it. Just at all.
Anything.
And like I know you're saying like it's a bit of a parody piss take and stuff, and like I've said, they do kind of look at the camera a few times and wink and go, huh, see what we're doing? But I'm like, it's all very surface level, kind of superficial stuff.
Sure, yeah. That's
like they don't really get stuck in.
I can easily see why somebody wouldn't vibe with this for sure.
So you
can't be mad about that.
But that's where it is. I am very subjectively correct on that because, and as are you, I would say, because.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think, and maybe romance is that kind of genre where it does kind of depend on the person in the audience, like, and their own experiences and their own things that, you know, their own personal kind of baggage that they bring with them.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I think maybe if I'd seen this film at another time, like maybe 20 years ago or something, even though it wasn't really out, but you get what I mean. Yeah. I might have got into it a lot more because it might have seemed kind of totally fresh and interesting in that sense. But unfortunately, where I'm at now, it just felt like, yeah, and, you know, which I know sounds really harsh, but, you know, it's kind of how I feel about it.
Hey, that's fair, sure.
Even though I did like, and, you know, again, to finish on a more kind of positive note, I did like one thing I did like about the presentation was the non-linear timeline, because I like that anyway. I like that they jumped around between like, because it's 500 days, so they'd have a little ticker that kind of went tick, 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 and they'd jump to like 300 days. and he's all depressed and everything, and they don't seem like they're together anymore. And you're like, oh, I wonder what happened. And then they tick back to like 100 days, and they're all happy, but things are kind of looking a bit funny, and maybe things are starting to fall apart. And then they tick back to like the first day they met, and they're both ecstatic and totally into each other. And, you know, it was cool to jump around like that because in a way it's kind of showing you, well, this is inevitably what's happening anyway, and we all know this. So let's just jump around and see how we got there. And so I like that side of it as well. I thought that was kind of cool. But, there's so many cliches as well. Like, this is my favorite part of the city because I can see some old buildings and shit. And I'm really into architecture. It's like, yeah, right, good on you, dude. Like,
draw your buildings on my arm. It doesn't matter I don't have paper. It's romantic. I mean, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's all of that shit. That 100%.
While we're sharing, that is fucking on the nose for me as well because the ex that I'm thinking of when I think of Zooey Deschanel in this movie, we used to spend lots of evenings basically drawing all over each other.
Damn, hell yeah.
Because we're both arty-farty kind of people. So
yeah,
it was a different experience to the way they expressed it in the film. So I think that's why it didn't really connect, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's very much your personal or my personal circumstance has dictated that this film just doesn't really do anything for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, actually, I kind of love that. That's super dope.
So, you know.
I love that you still found something to connect yourself with it, even if it's not in the same way. It's funny.
Well, and that's where I think it is interesting just as a meta thing, like, because I did actually connect with it quite a lot is the reason why I didn't really like it. And that's what I mean. It's not that I didn't really like it. It just didn't do anything for me. Because it's like, yeah, this is nothing new. This is nothing surprising. This is nothing interesting because been there, done that, got the t-shirt, who cares? Like, whatever. So, yeah.
Dude, I gotta tell you, the last bit of dialogue on the bench, it still made me have a lonely tear roll down my cheek. It still gets to me a little bit. My dumb ass sampled that dialogue in a song many years ago.
Hell yeah.
I'm that type of dude.
I need a link. We need to include it in this recording.
Sure, I can share it afterwards.
Stay tuned, listeners, if you want to hear Matt's remix of 500 Days of Summer.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. I think it's time for you to put a number on it. And I'm scared.
Oh, you're not going to like it because, you know, honestly, my number for it has to be like, again, I start thinking out of 5, so I'd probably give it like a 2 out of 5. Like, yeah, it did not bring me higher than that because it kind of,
dang.
For me, 2.5 is very much a kind of meh, average, middle of the road, neither up nor down kind of movie. And then you add to it that there were more parts that annoyed me about this movie than didn't. So it kind of brings me down to a 2. But, you know, like I say, it was competently made. I think the performances were good. I think the writing actually was fine. Like,
yes,
there was nothing or nothing horrendously wrong with it that I hated. It was just they were annoying as hell, and it just didn't connect at all with me, or didn't give me anything. I didn't feel like I got anything from it. So
they're annoying as hell. You mean the characters, right?
Yeah, totally.
Or like, yeah. I mean, I guess that ties it back together. I guess I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Over Life Less Ordinary. If you don't connect with the characters, the relationship isn't gonna engage you that much. I guess, or connecting is maybe not the right word, but if you don't.
But and what I think perhaps like we've kind of alluded to as well, it's probably a symptom of the genre too, because when you've got a story that's all about two people connecting, and you don't connect with that, it's probably very difficult to, you know, get into it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other genres, like you know, action movies or whatever, it's more about the scenario and the world, and you know, there's a whole lot of external factors that go into making it exciting or interesting beyond like the human relationship. Because I think in both these films there's not necessarily heaps going on other than the whole romance journey kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess I gotta give my rating as well. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. It's not like the perfect greatest thing ever, but I'm so vibing with this dumb bullshit. Fully knowing how much dumb bullshit is in this, it just is fun to me.
And I think I know what you mean as well, because you never like the shitty pop songs more than when you've just broken up with someone. Like the crappy love songs that you hate every other time of the year kind of speak to you when you're feeling depressed and lonely. So,
I mean, to be fair, I was half expecting rewatching this now, so far removed from that breakup, that maybe I wouldn't at all like this movie anymore. But it's still there, maybe for like different reasons now. But I'm still really into it.
Well, I think there's some like, it sounds like it was quite formative as well for you, like as in it was part of an important part of your life kind of thing, which I think again kind of there are some movies like on our very first episode I discussed the movie Go. For me, that was a very formative movie for me. Like that was very much part of my growing up and going from being a teenager into adulthood and getting out on my own and going from being a child to being older and all that kind of thing. So I feel like I'm connected to that movie a little bit more than perhaps the average person might be. Yeah. So, that's understandable. Oh, and a very fun fact, just as a final thought, the last, 500 Days of Summer is all about different days and all that kind of thing. The 500th day, which is at the very end of the movie where he meets Autumn, happens to be my birthday.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because
very nice.
It finishes on May 23rd, and that's my birthday. Just as a weird coincidence.
Well, I hope you meet Autumn this May 23rd as well.
I'll let you know next time.
Yeah, good. One final question to finish this discussion up. Think hard about this one. Would you rather dig your own grave while an angel watches over you ready to shoot you in the head, or be a greeting card writer? Very difficult choice.
I mean,
top tier difficulty.
I mean, the smart money would say write greeting cards, surely. But I love that scene in the film. It's one of my favorite scenes in Life Less Ordinary because they've got the REM song playing and it kind of just builds really slowly. And it's like the emotional climax where Cameron Diaz then turns around and goes and saves Ewan McGregor. And,
yeah,
it's one of my favorite parts of the film. So I'm gonna say I want that. I want to be saved. I want to be rescued from being shot in the head and digging my own grave.
Well, to be fair, that wasn't part of the question. I don't think you're gonna get saved.
I made it part of my question.
Damn.
I'm taking over here. Putting my foot down.
Well, in that case, I'm just gonna be the greeting card writer, and in case you do die, I'm gonna write the condolences cards for your family or something. I think that works out.
Yeah, I'll take that.
We'll make it work.
Yeah. Sounds fair.
All right. Good talk.
Let's spin that wheel.
All right. Holy shit. I forgot to prepare this.
Well, before we spin the wheel, if anyone who is listening would like to get in touch or make suggestions or give us comments or tell us how right or wrong we are, we welcome all comers. And probably wherever you're listening or watching this, you can probably comment or something, I would suggest. Otherwise, I'm going to give you our email address because why not? It's correctsubjectively@gmail.com. It's the name of the podcast, just backwards, because subjectively correct was already taken.
I forgot about that. Also, I think we never said this, but there's a letterboxed list where we always list the movies we talk about, plus all the subjects that are already on the wheel. You can also comment on there if you want to leave anything.
And our letterbox links are with wherever you're listening to it too. So if you want to check out our own accounts, because we watch a lot of other movies as well, not just the ones we talk about. So feel free and do get in touch if you want to. Always fun to hear from people, but
Yeah, so far no complaints, so that's good. Okay, the wheel is spun. The next theme next month is gonna be feel-good movies.
Oh.
Not too far removed from this month's theme, I guess.
Yeah, true. I mean, love and happiness should be feel good, really, shouldn't it?
Should be.
Should. Yeah. maybe not in all, cases, but feel good.
Feel good movies. That is such a
Very broad
thing.
Because we could do cheesy Hallmark movie, or actually something that's quite kind of sad but uplifting and feel good. Like, I often find quite sad dramas very feel good because they kind of remind you of appreciating life and all that kind of stuff.
I could choose It's Kind of a Funny Story. I'm thinking about it now. I could fit that in there.
That's very much a feel good movie. I will say, I'll agree with you there.
That might be it, but we'll see about that.
I have to get those thinking caps on. But yeah, other than that, thanks everyone for listening if you have, and hope to see you next time.
Yes, see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I miss you so much.
Doesn't make sense.
It just happened.
Right, but that's what I don't understand. What just happened?
I just woke up one day and I knew.
Knew what?
What I was never sure of with you.